how does language processing work, both in the brain and in computers? That means, how can you take input which looks like text or which looks like sounds that people produce, and from that input derive the underlying meaning? How is it that you can take in the sounds that you're hearing right now and compute the meaning that underlies those words that I'm saying? And how can we build computer systems to do the same thing? I'm Richard Futrell, Associate Professor in Language Science here at UC Irvine. And what I study is language processing. Language processing, this is the question of how it is that our brains can do this remarkable feat of transforming sounds that we hear or words that we see on a page into meaning. So what computations do we have to do to transform language into meaning? And I study that not only in the human brain, but also in machines and computer systems, trying to figure out how we can build computer systems that process language in the same way that humans do. And of course, we've all seen these new and exciting systems like ChatGPT now that can generate text that looks a lot like the text that humans might generate. And it turns out that there are really interesting connections between how our brains process language and how a system like ChatGPT processes languages. There's also important differences. The key thing, and the thing that's been really surprising in this area of science over the last 3 or 4 years, is the power of prediction. It turns out that a lot of how language processing works, a lot of how we understand language, has to do with how well we can predict what word is coming next when we're reading text or when we're hearing someone say something. So if I say something like, "The children went outside to," you probably want to fill in the blank there and say play, right? The children went outside to play. Your brain is always trying to fill in the blank to say what's going to be coming next. And that turns out to be a key part of how language comprehension works in humans. And the parts of sentences where you can't fill in the blank, where it's unpredictable, those are exactly the parts of sentences that are hard for people to understand. What's interesting is that this same idea of prediction carries over to these computer systems, these neural networks like ChatGPT. Really, all these systems are doing is they're just trained to predict the next word, given the previous words. Exactly the same thing that you're doing when you are comprehending language. You're predicting the next word. ChatGPT is nothing other than a gigantic neural network that is trained to predict the next word. What's exciting is that from this simple idea of prediction emerges what appears to be intelligent action. It appears that ChatGPT generates text that it looks intelligent, it looks like there's some meaning underlying it, and yet that all comes simply from prediction. And I don't think anyone saw that coming maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Everyone knew that prediction was powerful. No one knew that it was this powerful as a key guiding concept for both computer science and machine learning and for cognitive science. So where is all this going? So both on the psychological side of understanding how humans processing language and on the technology side of developing systems that process language, the next step is really going to be a flip from comprehension, which is the question of how you can listen to language and figure out the meaning, to production, which is how you start with a meaning and decide what you're going to say. From the human side, we need to understand how that process works. From the computer side, we need to understand how to control these systems. What we have in systems like ChatGPT now are systems that can take in text, and then they just generate more text based on whatever they think is most predictable, given what they've seen so far. What we really need is a way to steer that generation process, to control it, to make sure that it's expressing some actual meaning, some actual intent. That will make the system both more useful as an intelligent assistant, and also that will prevent it from generating things that might be harmful or dangerous. So going from comprehension to production, or from sort of mindlessly generating tokens to generating something from an underlying meaning, that's the next step for this field.